These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
So Kyle's been having a great 24 hours here. Kyle may have COVID, and the Wolves also at one point gave up a 60-20 swing in that game to get blown out in Atlanta. What was worse, watching the second half of that Wolves-Hawks game or dealing with your own personal health issues this week?
Well, I think you need to clarify what watching the second half means, because most of the people listening to this probably didn't watch the game.
Dude.
So I don't know. This will be, if there's any
Coming up next on Valley Sports North, a blank login page. Oh, my God, dude.
This is a low point. I broke a rule last night. I think I was mad online. I think I quote tweeted Kevin O'Connor. Regretted that this morning. I'm the worst version of myself.
He dunked on Kevin Timberwolves last night.
Yeah, I sound terrible. I'm trying to keep it together. It's my wife's birthday, so happy Halloween birthday to her. But that's about all I got. Yesterday, you know what's funny? And this is why I love doing content and hopping on here during my lunch break, is that we were 1 week removed from something I really believe in. 1 week removed from me saying last Monday, signing Jaden McDaniels at the deadline, the high water mark for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I was like, this is great. The vibes are so good. Like, season's about to start.
And in the first quarter, it looked great. He comes out with the afro, just knocking down threes. He's got like 8 points in the first 3 minutes.
And I did give myself the exit window of, Ricky Bobby's dad at Applebee's being uncomfortable with when things are good. And the Timberwolves in the last week have gone so far, Ricky Bobby just causing a ruckus at Applebee's, where you had, the Minnesota Timberwolves had the best offensive half of the entire NBA season in the first half yesterday, and then compounded it with the worst offensive half in the second half of the entire NBA. And on top of it, my phone was melting down because everyone and their cousin who lives in the tri-state area, I had friends in Omaha, Nebraska that are like, I have League Pass and it's blacked out from Minnesota. Season ticket holders, they get League Pass as part of their kind of promotion, which I think is kind of a cool thing. That's meaningless if you can't access the app. And I've had so many people send me these illegal streams and stuff, and I get that, but that's not the point. Like, the point should be, I don't know. I'm going to give it back to you. You take this wherever you want.
No, I think there's two. I think we need like
I'd also
two
like to rip
sections.
the Timberwolves.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we should start there. I think, and by the way, if you gave up, you're trying to log in and you weren't able to log into the ballot, and I was the same way. Dane Moore was the same way. We're all trying to watch a road game here. Well, you are out of market, so you're a League Pass guy from Portland.
Yep.
Although you can't watch the Portland versus Wolves games. Right?
I'm also an old soul, so I have cable, so I can watch Portland. But I should clarify that too, because I was going on. I mean, again, NyQuil and cough medicine will just make you tweet random things, but I can watch all the games. So when I complain about it, it's just because all my friends, and I mean, if Dane Moore can't watch road games, that's probably a pretty big issue because he covers the team. So I don't know what to say.
Let's take because I'd love to have this streaming rights Bally's conversation with you. Let's carve out a chunk later in this episode after we get done dissecting the Wolves. And I figure it's, we're texting late last night. It's kind of what the hell's happening here. And I was trying to think, like, what's the best way to frame up what happened last night? I suppose we could just start the show and I could just throw it to you and say, what are we doing here? But I'm going to go a different route with you here. We do something across the Score North podcast called the pie chart of blame.
Thank you.
Rock knows how you feel about pie.
I think, and I'll just present to you my pie chart of blame for the Timberwolves blowing a 21-point lead at one point. There was like a 40-point swing in, I think, 15 minutes of game time. There was like a 35-point swing last night. All right. So you could probably find ways to give out like 9 or 10 slices of pie, because pretty much everyone that stepped on the court in the second half deserves some chunk of the blame. What are we doing here? But we're going to start with this. 4 slices, and I'm going to go 25%, 25%, 25, 25. Okay. So 4 equal slices of pie, okay?
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Slice number 1 goes to Timberwolves culture. Now, if you remember, I think it was right around the time we had Chris Finch on the podcast, we did a couple episodes about Heat culture. We were kind of looking and saying, okay, the Wolves are building something here. The Heat have had this thing. It's like this sort of It's called heat culture. It's this kind of nebulous thing that it's like you know it when you see it, right? Oh, that's heat culture right there. Grinding out, you go play on the road without Jimmy Butler and Kevin Love, and you're kind of in the game still in the third quarter with a bunch of backups. Like, that's heat culture. The Heat going to the NBA Finals when they're not even one of the 3 or 4 favorites in the conference, just grinding it out. That's heat culture, right? So Udonis Haslem, we found this for that episode like 6 or 8 months ago. He was interviewed by GQ magazine, and he was asked specifically, what is heat culture? And his answer was, quote, "It's a lifestyle, bro. It's discipline, accountability, work ethic, and enjoying somebody else's success." I don't know what Wolves culture is yet. I don't know so there's discipline, accountability, work ethic, and enjoying somebody else's success, and it's all a lifestyle. You're either in or you're not, right? So there's 4 things. I don't know what all 4 things are for Wolves culture, Kyle, but I know that one of them is blowing 20-point leads. That is baked into Timberwolves culture. Not only this roster, but they were doing this 10 years ago, dude. Like those Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio, Kevin Martin, Nikola Pekovic, Rick Adelman was the coach. Totally different front office, totally different roster coaching staff. Wolves culture for over a decade has been blowing big leads. It's baked into their culture.
The Minnesota Vikings just traded for Josh Dobbs.
Did they?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Hold on, is that why Judd and Declan are blowing me up right now?
Yeah, so not to pivot
God.
away from everything you just said.
No, we can keep this in. Ross, let's keep this in, by the way. This is great.
this is just the Minnesota
Josh
sports
Dobbs.
fan conundrum, but I'm sure there will be, for those of you that listen to Score North, I'm sure there will be some Vikings content later today. But as you rapidly cover all teams, I will just comment on the culture thing, and I will say... maybe, you know what? Actually, I'm going to hold off. Give me your other 3 slices of pie before I get into where I want to comment on.
Okay. I'm going to go 25%. Dude, he's our guy. I feel like sometimes we don't criticize him enough if we're going to criticize other players. And, Anthony Edwards. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, you look at the box score last night, and it's pretty impressive, right? It's like, I don't have it in front of me here, but it was like 31 points, 7 assists, like 6 rebounds. He hit a bunch of 3-pointers. But he was just kind of elevator music in the third quarter. It's like, man, okay, the lead's dwindling. Shots aren't going in. These guys are coming back the other way. They're scoring a bunch of points. What's the best thing you can do right now? How about stop jacking up shots? How about stop watching teammates jack up shots? Take the ball, get to the free throw line. He doesn't have that. Like, we want to sit here and talk about heat culture. And all these people, including Dwayne Wade himself, comparing Anthony Edwards to Dwayne Wade, being the next Dwayne Wade, right? And he's got that sort of big bruising, get in the lane. He can be kind of a combo guard. He can run the point. Like, he is kind of Dwayne Wade with better range and probably even, I don't know about more bounciness, but like he's like pre-knee injury Dwayne Wade, right? But Dwayne Wade at his peak in his physical prime was getting to the free throw line 8, 9, 10 times a game. And you rarely saw runs of 20, 30 points on the Heat because they would always just get to the free throw line because Dwayne Wade could put a stop to a run. So I'm going to go 25% for Anthony Edwards being kind of a bystander, just watching that thing happen. Get to the free throw line, man. Just, get some points on the board.
And just to clarify, the Timberwolves last night shot 9 of 15 from the free throw line. Rudy Gobert accounted for 8 of 11 of that. So the rest of the team, Rudy was 8 for 11 from the free throw line. They would foul him. Atlanta would foul him every time he got the ball under the basket. The rest of his teammates went 1 for 4. Ant had 1 free throw. It was, I believe, like a weird technical or like illegal defense that he missed.
Yep.
Jade McDaniels shot 0 free throws. Mike Conley shot 0. Karl was 1 for 1. Nikhil was 0 for 2, and no one else on the bench shot free throws. And I want to toss it back to you to keep serving up the pie here, but it's one thing. And we're going to get into some timeouts here and some Chris Finch stuff too. But it's one thing that drives me crazy about this specific team and Anthony Edwards specifically. Karl too. Like, we're going to blame a lot of people here. That's like the best way sometimes to stem a run is to just get to the line, reset everything, get your defense in place. Free throws are literally called that for a reason. It's like the easiest point you can make. You're uncontested. And they just didn't do that. I mean, they got so jump shot happy in that second half that all Ant needs to do is just barrel down. And I know he gets a tough whistle sometimes, but just get to the line. Go to the paint one time after another and just try to get 2 free throws to get yourself some points, but also just kind of like reset the vibe. They did not do that, and it was one of the litany of reasons why they had one of the most historic losses last night.
Yep. It was, and it's fun. Again, you look, I just pulled the box score up, so now I actually have it in front of me. 13 of 21 shooting for Ant. That's a great percentage. That's so much higher than his career percentage. He's been lights out from 3-point range in these first 3 games. He was 5 of 8 again last night. He's doing other things to get team. He wasn't garbage by any means last night. He's in there. He's fighting. He's active. But then it's like at the key moment of the game, you just need to sort of insert yourself a little bit more aggressively and just put a stop to things. And that's maybe the next evolution of his game.
13 for 21 on the night from field goals, but I think he was 2 of 8 in the third. So I do think like most of his production was, again, we're going to get into everyone here, but most of his production was in the first half, and he kind of, as everyone else did on this team, got away from what was working in the second half. But okay, so 25% culture, 25% Ant. Who's next?
Okay, third slice out of 4 here. Pie chart of blame.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Told myself I wasn't going to rip this guy until like January. Karl. I'm not going to go crazy here, but he just tell me if I'm wrong here, Kyle, but I feel like this is more of a broad perception of Karl. 2 things. 1, blowing big leads has been a big theme under his watch as sort of the head of this franchise. Now, that dynamic is changing here over the last 12 months to where Anthony Edwards is becoming more of the head of the franchise, and that's why he was in this pie chart too, okay?
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
But this has been a theme in Karl-Anthony Towns' career, and it's not like football where there's like 11 guys on the field and, there's only 5 guys on the court, and you're playing like, 35, 40 minutes, and you're the best player over the course of 8 years. Why does this keep happening? He is a centerpiece of Wolves culture, and a centerpiece of Wolves culture is blowing 20-point leads. So I have to put him on this list too. He also I think he only had 1 3-point attempt until the last 2 or 3 minutes of that game. How are we going from shooting 10 3-pointers, I think correctly in the first game of the year, one of the great shooters in the NBA, to just not shooting a 3 in like 30 minutes of time on the court? He just hasn't figured out, how are we this far into his career and you don't know what his game is going to be like on a night-to-night, game-to-game basis? So it's kind of like a lifetime achievement, 25% slice of pie to Karl for just like being one of the central figures of teams that are soft and blow 20-point leads.
I think before I get into that, but I have it flagged, give me your last one.
Okay. It's got to be Finchy.
Yep.
Friend of the show. He's our guy. Okay. But dude, at some point, it keeps happening on your watch. And you're not the only coach, as we've laid out, that this has happened to on a regular basis. But you can't sit there. You and I were both sitting there for 3 hours on media day, watching player after player, Chris Finch, Tim Connolly come in and talk about, boy, one of the biggest problems last year was maturity, focus, and losing to teams we shouldn't, or blowing leads that were supposed to be insurmountable. How that can be a point of focus to start the season. How you can do it so many times last year and then have it happen 3 games into the season like this is incredible to me. So I think there's a lot. I saw a lot of people just straight up calling for his head last night. I'm not there at this point, but dude, this happens a lot, and you are the coach, and you've got timeouts. Call timeout strategically. Is there a message at halftime that is just not landing? I mean, at some point, it does fall back on the coach to some extent. Not 100%. That's why he's only getting 25%.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
But Finchy's my 4th slice.
So let me run it back from 4 to 1.
Okay.
Chris Finch. I want this on the record again that and you, what did you text me last night? I was like, hey man, I'm kind of under the weather right now. And you said,
I think I said, hey, why are you going after Kevin O'Connor aggressively on Twitter right now?
You go, would you take full-blown COVID for a month if it guaranteed a Wolves trip to the Western Conference Finals? And I fired back, I would lick Ebola. I don't care who's on the team. I really don't. It's been cool to have Finch on it. I am a Finch guy. I understand his limitations. I really, again, if this roster was 14 Luke Rittenhauers and a Luka Garza and they won 55 games, I would get rid of everyone. I just want the team.
Dude, that'd be
to
a fun
successful.
league pass team, by the way.
It would
if
be.
If you had 14 Luke Rittenhauers and a Luka Garza,
it'd be a lot of things.
All over that, yeah.
But so I want everyone. That's why I think the pie chart of blame is like the greatest thing you can do today, because I just want everyone to be blamed. So let's start with Finch, because a lot of the people in my mentions last night were like, call a timeout. Call a timeout. Stop being Phil Jackson. I am down for whatever solutions we come up with that are tangible. But if you're just going to yell at me, which by the way is so random, like stop blowing me up. I'm sick.
People are yelling at you
because I like Chris Finch. Yeah. But it's like, so Chris Finch called 2 timeouts in this. This is like my biggest pet peeve in life is like, I love complaining. Please complain. Continue to complain. But if you're complaining about things that aren't true, I literally have no time for you. And it's probably why my block count is up to 700. I'm like Rudy Gobert now on Twitter. Finch took a timeout in the third quarter. They were up 96-88. He took a timeout with 2 minutes left. Atlanta went on a 10-2 run right after that timeout. Timeout did nothing. Now, again, there's nuance here. What did they talk about in the timeout?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? There is blame on the coaching staff. But if your answer to these runs was to call a timeout, he did that. So then it's 98-98 at the end of 3, which at the end of a quarter is kind of like a timeout. Atlanta comes out in the fourth quarter, 9-0 run. First 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So if you want to blame Finch, and he deserves a quarter of the blame, you got to give me something more than call timeouts, because calling timeouts is literally the wrong answer. Jake Painting, who does Howls and Growls, did a 5-minute YouTube video of what they did in the first half and second half. That's tangible. He showed me basically Quinn Snyder adjusted their pick and roll defense, didn't give the Wolves. I mean, the Wolves, it's ironic, right? The Wolves were cooking in that first half.
Yeah.
My coach of the year bet was free money in the first half, and now I'm trying to I'm paying people to take that bet from me. The second half, Quinn Snyder made 1 or 2 pretty basic adjustments, and the Wolves made no adjustments.
Also worth noting, Quinn Snyder used to be Utah Jazz coach during the Rudy Gobert era. If anyone knows how to adjust to a Rudy Gobert-centric defense in a halftime period of 12 minutes, it would probably be Quinn Snyder.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep. And again, I'm not. Please, I would challenge some of you, just some of you. It's a very small portion to turn on the critical thinking button.
So would you not have Chris Finch in the pie chart of
No.
blame for blown
No,
leads?
I would have. Oh no, 100%. He is not making adjustments. I don't know if it's this Phil Jackson philosophy of just I want to let my guys figure it out.
I think it's
but
part of that.
I do think you need to just interject with. I always refer to it as a run game. Get something in there that draws up a play. There's got to be a play in the NBA that is so complex now where it's we're going to get Ant to the rim. And if he doesn't get fouled, I'll get a technical. It'll slow down the game. It'll change the momentum or whatever. But if he does get fouled, he gets 2 free throws. It stems that run. It just gives our guys a little break. Mm-hmm. Finch doesn't do that. But it's not the timeouts, because he called timeouts. He had
it's more
breaks in the play.
It's a
and
strategic
it didn't work.
thing. Yep.
So
I agree.
That's the Finch thing. And again, the Finch stuff is he cooked up the best 24 minutes of basketball the NBA has seen in the first week, and then he cooked up the worst. So if you just want to fire him, again, I just want to know who is going to replace him. Is it internal? Because then it's well, as we get to culture later, are any of the internal people going to fix that? Is Micah Nori, who is really smart, going to fix it? Are you going to bring in someone else? Are you going to go get a retread like Doc Rivers? What? I need to know the answers there. But Finch deserves a quarter of the blame.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of he didn't call a timeout until they were from 21-8 with you might be able to argue. And again, I in the third quarter, to be honest with you, started watching a horror movie because I thought the game was over and I was going to watch the second half back later. Turned out that the horror movie was actually getting
I watched the horror movie in the second half too. Yeah.
So there's a nitpick on, okay, could he have, because what I love about Spoelstra sometimes is that dude will frickin' and he did this brilliantly throughout the NBA finals too, when the Eastern Conference finals, either way, no, it was the finals. He's okay, we're not, if they start to tsunami us with a run, I need to call a timeout instantly. Sometimes Finch waits a little too long on timeouts, but I agree with your general assessment of, it's not the basic rip is call timeout. This is a deeper problem than just timing of timeouts. It's what's being retained in the huddle. What's being retained at halftime? Why aren't the leaders on the court taking more accountability in terms of following through? Also, like, you've got enough talent on this team. It shouldn't be all about the coach as a puppet master. Like, you should be able to, if you're Karl, if you're Conley, and Conley was sick last night too. If you're Rudy Gobert, Kyle Anderson, you should be able to figure out how not to allow a 40-point swing against the Atlanta Hawks, regardless of who your coach is. I still stand by 25% Finch in the pie chart of blame.
And as do I. Again, please, common sense button, turn it on. I'm not defending Chris Finch. I think my biggest thing, and I would literally, as someone who has like talked to him, we've had him on the show, maybe we'll have him on again. I would ask him this. My biggest gripe with him is like body language sometimes. You can tell that he just looks super frustrated, but not in the way that like Steve Kerr gets frustrated or like you said, Spo. It's like he's just not overwhelmed, but I don't know, just watch it. Like watch when some of these runs are happening. He just looks really, really like, I don't know. And it's just, I would love for that. Start the game out. They give up an easy basket. They're down 2-0 and Finch calls a timeout. Just like that resetting of like, I mean, I hear all the time about how much he controls that locker room and people buy in. Ant hit a 3 last night and like dapped up Chris Finch on the run back. I think that relationship is important. I don't think it's a be-all, end-all, but there are aspects of this Finch thing where it's like, calling timeouts is not the answer. If that was your solution last night, you are wrong, you lose. But there are things that Finch did wrong and lost as well. Like, you got to be able to make adjustments. If Jake Painting, who is really, really smart, can break it down in a 5-minute YouTube video night of, God forbid that that's what they're looking at today as well. Like, I hope that the video they watch is just Jake's video on YouTube. It's like, hey man, we did nothing different in the second half. Yeah. They were dropping their defenders back. It made it impossible for Rudy Gobert to kind of catch lobs again, which I thought, again, I know plus minus isn't going to support this, but and you're 1-2. Your record is what it is. I thought it was another really good Rudy Gobert game, especially in that first half. Like, he is flying around for lobs. He had some incredible blocks. Rebounding has been there. I think the Wolves, again, for the third straight game, out-rebounded their opponent, 38-36, so not a big deal. But the rebounding now has been solved for all of 3 games. But, like, they're not a team now that's getting crushed on the glass. So, Chris Finch, got to be better. Like, you got to end now. And I apologize because as we figure in the Timberwolves collapse and the Kirk Cousins Achilles and not being able to watch the game, I also know something I didn't have to deal with. Maybe you can comment on it yourself. It also started snowing last night. So
it's a winter wonderland here. So I love it, actually. I think it's great.
I know that there is a perfect storm right now going on that is making people just really upset. So number 2, to run it back from 4-1, Karl-Anthony Towns. Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer had this tweet that was like, nice hustle, Cat. It was on this play in the third quarter when Ant had a turnover.
It was a really bad Anthony Edwards turnover, actually, is what should have been.
And again, the snippet of video he watched that I quote tweeted and I deleted because I don't really like mixing it up on Twitter because it's just, what's the point? I hate that app. Ant misses Nas Reed in the corner on that play. Nas is wide open. I think they're down 8. Just give it to Nas. He's been hitting threes. Watch the play that he tweeted out. Nas is wide open. Then Ant gets the ball just stripped from Bogdanović. Not the world's best defender. Then Bogdanović goes full court, down court for a layup. Ant does kind of sprint back, try to get a block. Karl does not. He does not really run back at a pace that you would like from a max player who is one of your cornerstones. Yeah. I totally get that. But I also just hate the lazy narrative of, it was literally like, nice hustle, Cat, LOL. And it's like, this is something that will tie into your 25% of culture blame. If you are a longtime Timberwolves fan, you have been here. This is how they used to treat Karl. And I think Karl gets maybe more than 25% of the blame last night. He has been, I will say Karl-Anthony Towns is off to his worst start of a season in Timberwolves history.
It's close.
These first 3 games have not been good. He had 2.5 good minutes against the Heat in that third quarter that kind of gave him a lead, and then they basically sat him the fourth quarter, which I liked from Finch. Finch went with the hot hand. Mm-hmm. Karl deserves a ton of blame. On that play, to single out the guy that didn't have any part of the blame and just be like, oh, nice hustle, buddy. Go watch, I think it was later in the game, 3:57 mark of the fourth, and has another turnover that's just egregious. Karl's at the top. Yeah. Karl does sprint back to try to prevent a layup, and Ant walks back. My whole thing is that for Karl's first 3 or 4 years, he was impenetrable in criticism. Think about this. Go back. It was always someone else's fault. The organization, the coaches, Wiggins, right? He was kind of the guy that would get made fun of.
Jimmy Butler, when Jimmy Butler spoke up about some things that I think in retrospect he was probably right about, I and a lot of other people were like, why would you say that about Karl? You should be wanting to play with Karl. So I do agree with you. It's flipped in the 8 years.
The Timberwolves had 10 turnovers last night. Anthony Edwards had 5 of them. No one else in the starting lineup had a turnover. So again, Karl's hustle on that play, bad. But to just call that out and not be like, man, you missed a guy wide open in the corner. I mean, again, was 2 for 8 in the third, 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter. He killed as much as the ball mover as anyone else. And all I'm trying to say is, as you give 25% blame to Karl, 25% blame to Ant, like anytime you or I defend someone, it's like, oh, you're a homer. You're not being fair. You're not being critical to everyone. We got to be critical to Ant. We have to. Because I think sometimes, as good as he is and as fun as he is, and I think I've said on podcasts I'd like to adopt him as my own son.
You did
like,
say that,
we got to start to hold him to the same level of expectation that we do with other people, because he can blow up all of the good things they do just as much as anyone on this team. And I love the kid. And he at least has the age thing. But to go back and look at some of the plays last night, he had a cross-court pass to Jaden that had no chance. It was just one turnover after another. Weird. He doesn't go to the rim. He's trying these floaters. And guess what? Go watch the second half. Some of these floaters he's taking were with Rudy off the floor. So it's not like, oh, big dumb Rudy like clogging up the paint. No, he wasn't even on the floor for some of that stuff. So you got to give – I'm just here to say, like, every single person should have had to walk home. Like, no one should have been able to take the team playing. Everyone deserves blame except for maybe Jordan McLaughlin, who is just an innocent bystander in all this. But I think it's right to blame them. I think it's right to blame Karl, to blame Finch, to blame Ant. And then the culture thing, I don't know. I think I'd like to talk about Bally's now, because
that's part of the NBA's culture right now, I feel like.
I think
everyone the new logo is everyone confused trying to like log in on their smart TVs and phones to the 14 Bally's apps that are out there.
We're a week into the season, and we've already had you and I didn't do a pod. You kind of give me the weekends off. What the Jimmy Butler thing at Target Center the other night, I don't really get offended much. It was one of the most offensive things that I can remember. Him not playing. You have Jimmy Butler and Kevin Love in the third game of the season, two of the 10 best Timberwolves players of all time, just sitting in street clothes, not playing.
Second game of the year. Yeah.
I woke up yesterday.
It speaks volumes of what they think about Wolves fans, and right, that had more to do with they could have picked and choose some games here. I don't buy like it was a back-to-back. It's the second game of the year. I don't buy that.
And I know Sundays are football, but you probably missed this. Like, there was a real chance on Sunday that the reigning MVP of the league, Joel Embiid, was going to sit out for rest in the team's home opener. He ended up playing. He was awesome. He might have literally been bullied online into playing. But then it's like, you're less than a week into the season, and the league is resting star players at a higher clip than ever before after the league was pretty open that, like, hey, resting doesn't actually work, which is also, like, that's pretty crazy. And then I woke up yesterday morning. I'm already kind of triggered about all that stuff. And then it's like, oh, hey, Adam Silver got into bed with Kim Kardashian to like promote spandex for the league to have underwear. You have an app on League Pass that doesn't work. You have local markets that can't access their games. You have refs tweeting out after big missed calls on national TV games like, oh, my bad, we missed that. Shouldn't have been a technical foul on Jalen Brunson. I really mean this. I wake up every day and I check my Timberwolves temperature to be like, okay, do you still want to do this? Do you still like the team? Today was a little tougher. I was like, I don't know, man, but I'm here. I love them. I don't think I love the NBA. I think the NBA to me has like fallen down below football.
Dude, this is what Kyle. This is
just like
right
what is the point of it? I could not believe, man. I was like 5 minutes late for the game yesterday. I was at the gym. I came back and there was like I had seriously like 20 text messages. I was like, man, did they get off to a hot run? Did Ant have a dunk? It was just everyone in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Omaha. I can't watch the game. Mm-hmm. And it's truly, I don't want to get bleeped off the show. It's truly embarrassing. It is so embarrassing that I understand that it's more complex than just, again, it had nothing to do with Jim Peterson. Nothing to do with Michael Grady. They are just employees of the team.
I blame Jim and Mike, quite frankly. I think those guys need to be a little more vocal.
So don't
internally.
tweet at them. They can't really do anything. They're employees of the team. This is more nuanced. I understand the Wolves are different than like the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Wolves have multiple years left on this contract. Michael Rand for the Star Tribune has done a pretty good job of covering this. I don't know what the answers are, but it's just so embarrassing that this team is finally good. You're in your 35th year. You're trying to promote all these things and do all this stuff and get your fans in the building, and they can't watch games. I don't know how it gets fixed, so I'm not going to get up here and say, hey, I don't know, Mark Lowry needs to call timeouts, because we just went over that. Timeouts aren't the issue, but they got to do something, man, because that is so embarrassing that the best way for people to watch this is to go on the dark web and stream it.
Dude, I had to borrow
I'm sorry, but it's
direct TV login to get that game last night. I think, this has been great, by the way. This is my favorite Kyle here. COVID Kyle is my favorite Kyle.
COVID Kyle is just an absolute loser. And he's just mad because everyone can't watch the good stuff and then the app works and we watch the bad stuff. And then everyone's like, oh, we just shot bad. It's like, no, you didn't shoot bad. You're dumb.
It's just raging. Ugh. I think, so in terms of solutions, all right? So we're looking for solutions for this. Let's start with the TV thing here. The MLS had a really interesting solution for them. It was more, hey, Apple wants to give us like whatever it was. It certainly wasn't like an NBA or NFL amount of money for the rights to their games. But on one hand, it's really nice that if you are a fan of Major League Soccer and you want to watch soccer and you want to watch, the Loons, or you want to watch Messi, right? There's one place to watch all those games. With the exception, there might be a couple, they might have one other national TV deal, but 95% of the games are on the Apple TV app. And you pay a monthly fee, and then that money goes to the league, and boom, it's great for simplicity. I think it's bad if they're trying to reach new fans, because I'm not a huge ML. I'll watch Minnesota United games from time to time, and we are partners with them here at Hubbard. We carry their games, and we love doing so on 1500 ESPN Radio. But I'm not going to sit down and just stumble into, Kansas City versus New York or something, right? I can do that with the NBA, at least, there's enough TNT games and whatever. There's more national TV games. MLS is great for hardcore fans. It's bad for discovery. Is the NBA to a point? Here's my long rambling question. Is the NBA to a point where the league is popular enough, it's widely known enough, the brand is, omnipresent enough, where they could just say, enough with these regional and local rinky-dink TV deals, and they're worth revenue, don't get me wrong, but can we cobble together something for the local broadcast to all be on one platform, whether it's the NBA app or whether Apple or Amazon pays for it, right? Is that a solution? And it's all behind a paywall, and then teams are getting kickbacks from subscriptions. I don't know logistically how that would work if it's just one pool of money like the national TV deal and it's split evenly. I think New York would say, well, wait a second, we get more on our local TV deal because there's more people in New York than, say, Minneapolis or some smaller markets or, Memphis. But to me, that would be the best, right? Hey, I want to watch my team tonight. Here's the platform I go to watch NBA basketball. Boom. Super easy. And it's not the case right now.
And I know you watch a lot of football, not just Vikings, but I have Sunday Ticket through YouTube TV, and it is almost seamless. It's crazy how much they've invested into that product. And again, I go back to, because you and I were at Media Day, and we talked to about as high up of executives with the team as you can get, and it is complex. They can't just, I think they're owed, man. I think they have 3 more years on this deal, and it might be worth, I don't know if it's $50 million a year. I'm just kind of spitballing numbers I thought I heard, but that's a lot of money to just, if you just say, screw it, we're going to leave, you're not going to be able to get that money back in litigation or whatever they decide in the courts. So they're in a tough spot. But I also then just come back to, again, it's okay, we know that this product has gone up in value since it was sold on a layaway program 24 months ago. With this new ownership thing, and now we're turning the page to November. We think it could be December. I know Doogie's been on there. Maybe it'll be March 2024, whatever. Does Mark Lowry even know? Or how much does Mark Lowry know? Because I feel if Mark Lowry was, and I think he knows now because everyone was tweeting at him and CCing me last night, but I wonder if he knew if he would try to jump in and get it fixed right away and just be screw it. I'm worth a ton of money. I'm going to get rid of $150 million left on this contract or whatever, and I'm just going to give everyone an antenna like they did down in Arizona. But I don't know the solution, and that's kind of perfect analogy for what happened last night in the second half to the Atlanta Hawks. Like, I don't know the solution, and I'm open for anything, but I just want to blame, I think everyone should be blamed here. And I do think the team takes part of that thing too, because the number one, I have such respect for people, season ticket holders, that give up large chunks of money to not be able to have full freedom to like resell their tickets or whatever, to go to 41 games in the winter. I think it's truly like those fans are honorable, and they get League Pass as one of the perks. But if League Pass is blacked out in 5 surrounding states, that's not a perk anymore. It's meaningless.
That would be the solution, is if League Pass was just the streaming platform for all games and there were no blackouts locally. But obviously the problem there, that seems like a great solution right there, right? But then Bally's, or Sinclair Media, which is the parent company for Bally Sports North in this case, they would say, well, wait a second, we want those viewers to be watching on platforms where we can get ratings and we can show value with the money that we're paying the Timberwolves to run these games. If let's say League Pass was available in the Twin Cities, and I don't know what the number would be, 50,000 Wolves fans, like, great, 100,000 Wolves fans. That's 50 or 100,000 Wolves fans that aren't watching through the YouTube TV deal that, or a cable deal, right? So I see why the rights holder wants to prevent other platforms from gaining viewers, but that's why this is all like this impacts baseball more than anyone, and because baseball's revenue structure. Now we're getting like way in the weeds. Baseball's revenue structure is largely tied to local revenue, local TVs, like, because they don't have the national TV exposure that the NBA and the NFL. Like, the saving grace is if the local TV deals did blow up at some point here in the next couple of years, and I hope that they do, quite frankly, in the NBA, at least the NBA is driven largely by national revenue. So, and there's salary cap structures in place so that, like, unlike baseball where there is no salary cap and the top earning teams locally can just spend $150 million more on their payroll and create a disadvantage, the NBA is not like that. So I think the answer is a centralized location for locally telecast games where you're not being told you have to have this one provider, through Xfinity or DirecTV. It's like, I have YouTube TV, you have YouTube TV. I don't get Bally Sports North or YouTube TV anymore because 2 or 3 years ago, they failed to strike a deal. So now I need to uproot my entire entertainment ecosystem to go find, no. So I pay $20 a month for Bally Sports North streaming. It doesn't work last night. Like, fix your tech or fix your structure so people can watch your product.
And on top of all of that, Monday was a really weird day for the NBA, because I literally woke up to pictures of various players in underwear and Adam Silver and Kim Kardashian hugging each other. And then 2 hours later, it was announced that all 30 NBA teams would have an in-season tournament court. Yeah. That, by the way, like, alternative courts are very expensive. It's like a completely different court that they build like Legos in the arena. So all 30 teams get new courts. That's got to be $15-20 million. And we're sending some teams over to Abu Dhabi, and we're doing, it's like, why don't we focus on making the game accessible for fans and prioritize fans instead of making money? And that's why I'll just continue to rant against Adam Silver. I really think if you could go back in a time machine to 2017, the NBA is just in a worse spot right now. And they're on the heels of trying to negotiate this big TV deal, which isn't going well, basically on anything you read. That's why they're trying to be actually, we're not resting our players. Bradley Beal hasn't played yet, right? Like, Devin Booker's missed 2 games. Jimmy Butler's skipping a game in Minnesota. I don't know. It's a really, really, really dark time for the league. And I empathize because I get to see all the games. Yeah. And I come back to, if Kyle Theige can watch the Timberwolves easier in Portland, Oregon, than Phil Mackey can watch it in Minneapolis.
It's amazing.
That would seem like something that I would prioritize over leopard printed underwear for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I love it. I think you're 100% right. Hey, you know what we could all use right now? We could
cigarette?
use a cigarette and a pint of Modest. Modest Brewing, a tap room just steps away from Target Center in the North Loop in Minneapolis, Kyle. And a great spot to grab a beer before or after a Wolves game. After last night's road game, you probably needed a beer or 5, preferably a higher alcohol volume. So upcoming Wolves games that you could pregame or postgame for. Let's see here. We got I'll be there tomorrow night.
Nice. Big game.
At Target Center against the Denver Nuggets. Looking forward to that one. And then you got another one coming up on Saturday against the Utah Jazz. So Wednesday or Saturday, get your butt down to Modest. When we get you back in town here, I know you and I and Dane and some others can go down and grab a couple adult beverages at Modest.
I can't wait. And I've ever since we announced kind of a Modest partnership the other day, a lot of my friends have already gone and checked it out. So continue to go do that. I always say continue to support the people that support us. Can we wrap this up with like a lozenge, like 30 seconds of optimism or positivity? Because I do think
they're fine, dude. They're going to make the playoffs. They're still going to be a 6 seed. They're fine.
They highlighted their worst attributes of a team going back to since Finch started. Again, it's kind of chicken and egg for me. It's like, this team has blown a lot of double-digit leads with Finch on the team. It's like, why are they blowing a lot of double-digit leads with Ant and Jaden on the team too? Like, going back to your number one 25% of pie, the culture thing, I think in Heat culture, Heat fans don't blame one specific person or have biases, or they're just like, hey man, as an organization, we failed again. We blew a 20-point lead. That's kind of where I'm coming at on Tuesday morning. Is like the organization as a whole yesterday blew everything. They blew the ability to show games to the diehard fans who have received zero or negative return on their investment for 35 years. And the team as a whole, up and down, didn't get to the free throw line, didn't make shots, didn't trust each other, didn't pass the ball. So tough flight home. I know I saw Michael Grady when they got to the airport last night at probably like late. He was like dusting snow off his car. So there's probably nothing worse than coming back from a historically bad loss, bad plane flight. Like, oh, now I got to clean off my car. But I hope they had, some good tea this morning, maybe a Modest beer, a good practice, and we'll see. It's hilarious to be 1-2 right now. 2 games you shouldn't have dropped. They looked pretty good against Miami, I thought. And now you welcome the defending champions to town, who, by all accounts, they said you were the toughest opponent for them. So go beat the Nuggets on Wednesday, and I'm sure Thursday will be a much different vibe. But just be more mature. Just be smarter. Be more accessible. Be more honest. Don't sugarcoat things. That's all I got. I need cough medicine.
We'll get you out of here. We'll get you out of here. I think my final thought is, I need to see 2 months of basketball before I really start to hit the panic button. But that was one of the worst losses. That was probably one of the 3 worst losses of the last 2 seasons.
Oh,
Memphis
10.
Game 3. Yep. Memphis Game 3 in the playoffs was
way worse.
The George Washington on the Mount Rushmore. But this is in the conversation for worst losses in maybe 10 years in Wolves basketball. So there's definitely some similar red flags from last year. One of them being we have yet to see evidence over a lengthy stretch that Gobert and Cat on the floor together can produce quality winning minutes. I mean, the statistics have not lied to this point. So that is the biggest thing I'm keeping an eye on here. And it's not that in individual games they can't. I mean, the first quarter, clearly it was a positive pairing. But I need to see some sample size. Because right now, if you had asked me right now, does this partnership work? The answer is no. And then the next question being, okay, would you look to trade one of them either before the deadline or immediately next summer? I would say yes. And there's other reasons that go into that too, luxury tax, etc. But that's what I'm looking for here. Those 2 guys have to play together because you're not bringing one off the bench and you're not reducing one of their minutes to 20. They both have to play 30 to 40 minutes. There's only 48 minutes in an NBA basketball game. Those guys have to play together. And it's not enough for them to break even. That has to be a really positive EV partnership, and to this point, it has not been. So,
and everyone should be again embarrassed or frustrated because no one is ever going to talk about, maybe ever for the rest of our lives, how good that first 24 minutes was. Because there was a play where Rudy got the ball on the block and Karl cut from the top, and Rudy gave him a really nice pass that Karl finished for a dunk. There was also a Karl-Anthony Towns lob to Naz Reid in the first half. They came into that Atlanta game second best defense in the league, albeit 2 games, and I think dead last in offense. They showed you that we didn't even really get into this. They brought back Jaden McDaniels, and he might have just fixed a lot offensively for them. Spreading the floor, I think he came out firing in those first couple minutes. So you saw what the best of this team could look like, and that's, I guess, your glass half full. But the glass half empty is resorting back to when things get tough for this organization and its players and its coaches, they just resort to what is best for me, or how can I figure this out? And that is no longer going to work on the court, in the boardroom, on the bus, whatever. Like, they need to come together and find ways that Dane can watch the game and people can access the game and get 50% off concessions, and that their team carrying a lead into the fourth quarter isn't going to piss it down their leg.
Yes. The Vikings just traded Ezra Cleveland to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick, according to Kevin Seifert. So,
if you took nothing else from this, we were the first people to comment on the Josh Dobbs trade. So, Timberwolves Lifestyle Podcast, where you get breaking football news.
Yeah, this is hopefully your favorite Timberwolves Lifestyle Podcast. If you could click the like button and the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel, we would be grateful. And a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts would also make us grateful as we look to build this awesome community of suffering, anguished Wolves fans. We'll try again against the Nuggets on Wednesday night. Kyle, you're going to be out until Tuesday next week. So hopefully you get healthy, rest up, and hopefully people can start finding Wolves games on their TV in the next couple days too. See you guys.